make sure. Here we go. So, welcome to everyone. Today's session with the wonderful Adam Harris. Um, I'm just going to do a quick introduction to anyone that is not familiar with VEB, but many of you are, which is very exciting, and we're so happy to have you here. Just quickly about VEB. So, as you know, we're a global platform founded in COVID-19 by David and Mark, and essentially we are a community to created to facilitate connections around the world with members, support you in your board journeys, in your portfolio careers, um, of course, creating opportunities between each other, facilitating peer learning as well, board relevant networking, and of course, boosting your board visibility. Also, our presence around the world. So we are global. Essentially, the biggest presence that we have is in Europe, with 40% of the members, of course, North America, Latin America, Africa, and Middle East. So overall in the community, we have over 1,400 members, 85 countries plus overall, top being US, Switzerland, UK, UAE, and Brazil. And of course, as total, our members sit on over 4,000 board positions. And then also 40% of the current members have held C-level positions, 70% have also board experience. So it's a really diverse and interesting community. And of course, also the board ecosystem that we have. So these are our partners around the world that we currently partner with. And as a VEB member, you also get benefits of discounted rates to access these partners or other interesting things. And then the upcoming events we have. So with the summer being on, it's a lot of in-person events that we have happening. And of course, for the VEB members, we have the needs and lead sessions happening. The Entrepreneurs Network and the Marketing Network also are getting together. So via the platform, you definitely can register on there. And then the wonderful Mr. Adam Harris. I'll give the stage to you now.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. Good morning, good evening, everybody. Kia ora. My name's Adam Harris. I'm actually, for some of you in the future, it's 6:05 p.m. on Tuesday here in New Zealand. I'm originally from the UK, moved out 6.5 years ago. I'm going to spend this session, I'm going to go through a framework called EOS. And I'm going to talk about the relevance with regards to boards as well. So some of you may or may not have come across EOS. So I'm going to spend part of the time talking about the framework and the methodology. And then I'm going to spend some time helping you understand how I use it with some of my clients across the globe. So vision, traction, and truth. This is about using EOS at every level of the leadership team. So, a little bit about EOS. So, EOS was founded in the United States by a guy called Gino Wickman. Gino studied a lot of the modern greats, so Patrick Lencioni, Jim Collins, Stephen Covey, etc. And once he'd studied, he was brought into his family business. They were a sales consultancy business. The business wasn't performing particularly well. He came in, he implemented the base of the EOS framework, which I'm going to share with you, and they grew the business and sold out from the business. He was in a peer group called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. The members of his peer group or his forum asked what he was going to do next, and he didn't really know. And they suggested to him that he look to build out this framework called EOS, Entrepreneurial Operating System. The reason is that most organizations, and I can say this from having been a CEO within organizations and built and sold four of my own businesses, is a lot of businesses don't necessarily really have a framework for running their business. We talk about the power of EOS, which is be careful what you wish for. When you have a framework and a methodology where every single person within the organization, from an organizational perspective, then also from a governance perspective, knows and understands where you're heading and the direction of travel, it really starts to make a big, big difference. Um, there is about 925 people like me across the world that help companies implement EOS. And we talk about three things: vision, traction, healthy. So the first thing is vision. How do we ensure that everybody within the organization is on the same page? So getting real clarity and understanding who we are, why we exist as an organization, and where we're heading as an organization. Traction. How do we execute against the strategy to deliver on what it is that we want to do? And then healthy. How do we ensure that we have the right conversations with the right people at the right time? Our target market clients are 10 to 250 entrepreneurial owned businesses. However, I've worked with clients that are two people. The largest client that I'm currently working with is 8,500 people. They're PE backed. I do a lot of work with PE firms and VC companies that want to put structure and cadence and consistency into an organization. My background, originally qualified as a teacher, lecturer, built and sold, as I said, a number of businesses. I've done everything from I'm a qualified butcher, baker, and candlestick maker. I have been a professional lookalike. And at one point, I had a business where I had 15,000 blow up dolls. We used to supply inflatable extras to the TV and film industry. So thank you, Lola, for the smile. I have been involved in a lot of entrepreneurial spaces. For the last 20 years, I've been in the kind of leadership and governance space. I won in the UK Young Director of the Year, Director of the Year, and then Independent Director of the Year through the Institute of Directors over a 12-year period. And 6.5 years ago, moved over to New Zealand with my family, where I spend the majority of my time helping companies implement EOS and working with boards to get them working as well. So this is the EOS model, and I'm not going to go into a massive amount of detail today. If you have any of your teams or you want to know more about this, I'm more than happy to have a conversation at another point. We talk about six key components within a business, and the aim is to get to 100% strong in all of these different areas. And I'm going to go through each of these six components in a more brief space than I would do normally. So the first one is what we call the VTO, the Vision Traction Organizer. And the aim with this is to make sure that this is a two-page business plan that every single person in the organization knows and understands. The first thing we've got on here is core values. So the core values really help you define and understand what's at the core of how you work and how you operate. So when you have those core values, it should be how you're hiring, firing, rewarding, and recognizing. So sometimes it's the case that you may well have people within an organization or on a board where they just don't get and understand who we are as an organization and where we're heading. Second thing on here is core focus. Some of you may well have come across Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. Start with why. What's the purpose, the cause, or the passion? So over and above shareholder value, why does the organization exist? What has it been put on this earth to be able to do and deliver? And when you can understand that and you understand the niche of where you're heading, it really helps you begin to understand and getting everybody rowing in the same direction to be able to move forward. 10-year target. So this is the big, hairy, audacious goal. The moonshot, there's a book that talks about that. Volvo in the early 90s, they had a 10-year target, which meant, which was they didn't want anybody to be killed in or by a Volvo car. So whatever vehicle you're driving now, the safety features within that car probably has come from Volvo because they had this perspective that this is our 10-year target. Moving into the marketing strategy. So we within EOS talk about this aspect around who's the target market or the list. So beginning to understand who the demographic, psychographic, and geographic is. So really drilling down, and if I asked a company to write down the list specifically of names and positions, who are they? Where are they located? Where do they hang out? What are the things that the events that they go to? So that if I gave the marketing department a set of money, is that they would be able to say, okay, we know that Are we going to spend it on a TV advert? Are we going to be going to a golf day? Are we going to be exhibiting at a conference? Where would the best amount of money be spent to ensure that we're in front of our target market? Next thing on here is the three uniques. So used to be the aspect around unique selling point. Within EOS, we moved to this aspect of three uniques. So what are the three things that an organization does, which when put up against competitors, that nobody else does? So a competitor may well be able to do one and two, or one and three, or two and three. But when you put those three things together, nobody else is able to do it. Next thing on here is proven process and guarantee. So, what's the customer journey from start to finish that you take the customer on? And are you able then to kind of have a guarantee? So, I'm going to show you through this presentation what the EOS proven process is. Our guarantee when I'm working with clients is that I don't have any contracts. If the client doesn't believe they've had value, then they don't pay my invoice. And there's about 920 people like me globally that help companies implement EOS. 3 year picture. So now that we've got the 10-year target, how do we ensure that we break it down so that everybody within the organization knows and understands where we're going to be in 3 years' time? So if we as a team, a leadership team, or people within the business, if we went to one of those places where they do paint and Picasso, where you've got a blank canvas and you can draw something, is if I said to people within the organization, I want you to draw where is this organization going to be in 3 years, is that everybody would be able to draw the same picture, artistic license aside. So, future date, revenue, profit, measurables, what does it look like? So, really beginning to paint the picture so that we're gaining the clarity and understanding as to where we're heading and moving forward. So, that was the vision page. This is the traction page. So, 1 year plan, future date, revenue, profit, measurables. What's the 1 to 7 goals for the next 12 months? And then this for me is sometimes where EOS comes in that's different. We then move into this world around the rocks. There's a famous video that Stephen Covey's got about the rocks, the sand, and the water. And this is all about prioritization. So we move into what we call a 90-day world. Again, 90 days from today, future date, revenue, profit, measurables. What's the rocks or the goals for the next 90 days? And who is accountable to make sure that those get delivered? And then we have the issues list. So every single business has issues, problems, and opportunities. This is about making sure that we're capturing them. And is it a short-term issue, which means that it needs to be dealt with within the next 90 days? Or is it a long-term issue, which means is that we're capturing it on this list here? So second thing on here is about people. We need to make sure that we get the right people, and we need to make sure that they're sitting in the right seats. So this is what we call the people analyzer. Spoke before about having core values. So the core values across the top here are the EOS core values. Humbly confident, grow or die, help first, do the right thing, and do what you say. So imagine that we were speaking to David, and I might turn around and ask David and say, so when you think about help first, David, would you say that you're a plus minus, or minus? Plus means 90% of the time that David is displaying that value. Plus minus is 50-50. And minus is most of the time that David is not. So it's a great opportunity to have a conversation. Now, David may well say that he's a plus. I would turn around and say, hey, David, look, I'm going to say you're a plus minus. Here's the reasons why. And we talk about this aspect around you've either got to change the person or change the person. So giving David the opportunity to get up to speed and knowing and getting to where he needs to be. If not, there's a conversation that we need to have, which is, hey, David, I'm wondering, is this organization still the right place for you? And then making sure that we get the people sitting in the right seats. So within EOS, and I'm going to show you in a minute, we move away from an organizational chart into what we call an accountability chart. So let's say, for example, David is sitting in the seat of finance. We need to understand, does he get it? Does he want it? And has he got the capacity to do it? So get it means he understands what is required from sitting in that seat, the function and the roles that are needed to do the job. So on this, it's either a yes or a no. So David may well get that. Wants it. Dan Sullivan spoke about this aspect around unique ability. So, does David get up every single morning excited and willing and loving to go to work because this is what he was born to do? Again, does he get it? Does he want it? And then capacity is, has he got the knowledge and the specific vertical knowledge that is needed to perform that role? And or from a time perspective, is he able to kind of deliver it? So we look to get to the stage of getting the right people from a core values perspective, sitting in the right seats to make sure they get it, they want it, and the capacity. And this tool here is something that I am often using with boards. One of the things I've found over the years is people that are sitting on boards, are they a values match? And are they actually delivering against what is expected of them with regards to the roles that they're sitting in? I mentioned before about the accountability chart. So every single organization has three main functions: marketing and sales, operations, and finance. And within EOS, we talk about these two additional roles, one called the integrator. So there's a really good book called Rocket Fuel. And if anybody wants me to send you a copy, just please make sure you send me your details. The integrator is, in theory, the individual that is running the business on a day-to-day basis. So often potentially referred to as the general manager, chief operating officer. And then we also then have what we call the visionary. The visionary is often the CEO, the founder. The visionary often is big picture thinking, over the culture, uh, big problem solver. The visionary is often thinking about the future. The integrator is about the day to day and the here and now. So when you manage to get this functions working within an organization, so for example, Walt Disney was the visionary, and his brother Ray was the integrator. The visionary wants to put the accelerator on the pedal and go really fast and really quick. The integrator has got their foot hovering over the pedal, has got full visibility over the P&L, understands what's going on a day-to-day basis to allow the organization to move forward. And what we then start to do is to build out the right seats through the whole of the organization. So we work on this basis of structure first, people second. Again, this is exactly applicable to the board at the same point as well. The people that have sat on the board up till this point aren't necessarily the people that we need, depending on where the growth and the trajectory is of the organization. Two kinds of people issues: right person, wrong seat; wrong person, right seat. Okay, data, scorecard. So the aspect around this is getting to the stage of what's the 5 to 15 measurables on a week by week basis that we need to be tracking. Imagine that you are on a desert island and the cabana boy or girl comes up and said, "Here's your scorecard. There's your leading and lagging indicators. What's the visibility that you need to see to make sure that the business is performing the way that it needs to?" When I'm often working with boards, I talk about this aspect of what I call NEFO: nose in, fingers out. Too many times I see governance boards dropping down and being too much in the operational day to day. And actually, when you're able to have the visibility and understanding, you can prod and poke and ask a couple of questions, but you need to be trusting and enabling the leadership team to be able to do what they need to do. What we look to end up getting to the stage is every single person within the whole organization has at least one number that they're measurable for, which then ties up and down through the whole organization. Issues. As I said before, every single organization has issues, problems, and opportunity. We use this tool, which we call the issue solving track. And this stands for identify, discuss, and solve. Most of the time within organizations, what begins to happen is you identify what the issue is, you spend all the time discussing, and then you go straight to solve. And actually, what's important is that we spend more time digging and digging and digging to actually really work out what's the real issue that we need to identify to then be able to move forward. And by sharing this with the leadership teams, is that what they're able to then do is they can start dealing with the issues, the problems, and opportunities faster and quicker. Um, the issues list. So every single week, I spoke before about the short term and the long term issues. What we need to make sure that we do is instead of starting at the top, we pick the three most important issues in order to make sure that we process and go through on a weekly basis to be able to deal with what we need to focus on. Process. So every single organization has a handful of core processes: HR, marketing, sales, operations, customer services, accounting. What we look to do within EOS is to make sure that we document not to ISO 27001, but we need to make sure that we document and then simplify. So imagine from a perspective of a people process. So first and foremost, we identify what the need is. We define the seat. This is how we hire people. This is how we onboard and train. This is how we work out who's going to lead, manage, and be accountable. And this is how we deal with termination within our organization. Sales process. This is how we identify a new lead. This is what we do within the initial call and the qualification. This is what we do in the fit meeting, proposal, win and lose. So we create this company way, inverted commas. This is how things are done within the organization. Again, this can be applicable throughout the whole organization, but also to the board as well. What we're looking to do is we're looking to get to the stage of what are the 20% of processes that give us 80% of the results. Often within organizations, there's a lot of silos. So when HR understand how sales work, and sales understand how ops work, and ops understand how finance works, is everybody understands from a high level, this is how we do things around here. So you're creating, and a phrase I often use is clarity creates confidence. So when you're able to create that clarity throughout the whole organization, it means that people begin to know and understand, where do I fit in? Where do we fit in? How do we work and operate? I'm going to share with you now this aspect of what we call the level 10 meeting. So every business that I work with that implements EOS, we work on this basis of having the same meeting at the same time. It starts on time and it finishes on time. So if, for example, the organization that I'm dealing with at the moment's got 8,500 people, they run this meeting at the leadership level, and then they have meetings throughout the whole organization where everybody, if you're sat in one seat, you will never be sat in more than two meetings. Okay? The reason for this is the way that this structure works. So Vince Lombardi said, famous American football coach, is early is on time is late. So if our weekly meeting is supposed to start at 10 a.m., we're sat down or online ready to go at 9:57. As soon as the clock hits 10, we're ready to go. We start with what we call good news. So we're going through, it's good news personal and then good news business. So really fast and quick around the room. Good news personal, my daughter's just got a job at university. Good news business, I've just got back from a week in San Diego. Fast and quick, we go around the room. Two reasons why we do this. The first is to transitioning from working in the business to working on the business. The second thing is that actually beginning to get to know people on a personal level builds the rapport and the connectedness. The next three things on here are what we call reporting only. So I mentioned before about the scorecard. So those 5 to 15 leading and lagging indicators. If we're on track, great. If we're off track, we drop it down onto the issues list. The ROC review, or the goals for the 90-day period. Are we on track? Great. If we're off track, we're dropping it down onto the issues list. Customer and employee headlines. Is there anything that we need to know and share at this level or through the organization? Sometimes there's issues that come off the back of that. To-do list. So coming out of last week's meeting, we had 6 to-dos. Francesca had 2. She's done 1. She's taken it off. We don't need to know what she's done with it because she's accountable and we trust her to get on and do it. One of them is still on there, and potentially if it's on there for 2 or 3 weeks, potentially we need to drop it down onto the issues list. We spend the majority of the time going through the issues list like I showed you before. So the issues have come from last week's issues that weren't solved, any to-dos that are 2 or 3 weeks out of date, the scorecard which is off track, the rocks that are off track, and any customer employee headlines potentially that we need to go through. So we go through them, picking the three most important ones at a time. We go through that aspect of IDS, identify, discuss, and then solve. And then we conclude the meeting. So we conclude the meeting by talking around the to-dos that have come off the back of it. Really important here that the individuals vocalize what their to-dos are. Second thing is there any cascading messages that need to go into subsequent departmental level tens through the rest of the organization? And then the third and final thing is that we're scoring the meeting on a scale of 1 to 10. So every single meeting before we walk in is a 10 out of 10 meeting. We are looking to calibrate in how we worked as a team to be able to move forward. So I'm going to take a point off because one member of the team was 5 minutes late. I'm taking another point on because somebody was on their phone during this meeting. I'm going to add a point on because when we were processing that issue, we were asking and we got to the real nub of what the real issue is. So we're getting to the stage of scoring the meeting and calibrating so that we can learn culturally and precisely to then be able to recalibrate to be able to move forward. Okay. Andrew asks how and who captures the notes minutes of the level 10 meeting. So depending, there's three bits of software that are endorsed by EOS. One's called Success, one's called 90, and the other is called Streti. Those software can track all of the minutes and the to-dos and can cascade then through the whole organization. I've got some teams that are doing it themselves and have implemented it into Monday.com or other software that they're using. So depends how you want to do it, but there's different options that are available. So that's the EOS model. And this is the EOS process. So when I'm working with an organization, I start with doing what I call the 90-minute meeting. So it's a longer version of what I'm covering through now. I go through about us. I spend some time working and understanding about the organization. Go through the tools in more detail of what I've gone through now and explain this proven process. I then spend a full day on what we call the focus day. So I go through this aspect around hitting the ceiling. Every individual team and business hits the ceiling at various different points. And this is about beginning to understand why do you hit the ceiling and then how to deal with it. First session working with a leadership team is we work out what's the accountability chart that is needed to move forward. So what's got us to this point isn't necessarily what's going to be needed to get us where we need to go moving forward. So sometimes I go in with a leadership team of 8 and sometimes we walk out with a team of 6. Because what we need to do is we need to make sure that we get structure first, people second. Rocks. So we set those the first set of 90-day rocks. What's the 3 to 5 most important things that we need to achieve in the next 90 days? Get set up for that meeting poll. So literally the following week, a leadership team is going to be starting to do their first weekly meeting and then start to build out those 5 to 15 measurables on the scorecard. So we talk about this aspect of traction first, vision second, getting into the rhythm, the cadence, and the consistency where you can start seeing the rubber hitting the road to start taking ownership, accountability, and getting things moving. Roughly 30 days after that, I do vision building day 1, and about 30 days after that, I do vision building day 2. And through those 2 days, we're building out that vision part, that 2-page VTO, Vision Traction Organizer, where we're working on the core values. Now, often I go into an organization and they say, yeah, Adam, we've done a lot of this work before. And I say, trust the process. This is a proven process. If we get to the stage of getting exactly the same of what you've got, awesome. It just means that we've solidified and we've got clarity as a collective in knowing and understanding what we're doing moving forward. So we build out the core values, how we hire, fire, reward, and recognize. What's the core focus? So why do we exist as an organization? What's the 10-year target, the big, hairy, audacious goal? We often underestimate what we can do in the long term and overestimate what we can do in the short term. What's the marketing strategy? So demographic, psychographic, geographic. Who's that target market of the list of the people that we really want to focus on? It's not to say that we're not going to deal with other people, but really narrowing down and getting that focus to be able to move forward. What's the three uniques? So what are the three things when put together? Nobody else can say they do the same thing in line with our target market. What's the proven process? And then what's the guarantee that that backs it up? And then we build out the 3-year picture to make sure that we're all on the same page. We create the 1-year plan, have the next set of quarterly rocks, and we start to build out the issues list. And then we move into this aspect around this 90-day world. So every 90 days coming together to recalibrate, to look and benchmark. This is what we said we were going to do over the last 90 days. Have we done it? Yep. Have we not done it? What's the learnings? How do we recalibrate and then plan for the next 90 days ahead? And then once a year, getting together for 2 days to build out the 1-year plan and recalibrate the 3-year picture, to then do more work with regards to Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team. And there's about another 28 EOS tools that I spend time working with. So this is the EOS proven process. I now want to talk about the aspect around the owner's box and how then this works with regards to owners of the organization. So I was mentioning before about the accountability chart, and then we kind of have the owner's box at the top. So the owner's box, dependent upon the organization, could be comprised of an advisory board. It could be comprised of a governance board, shareholders, because each business is quite different. And as I said before, having worked with PE and VC firms, is it's about really beginning to make sure and understand that there's clarity from the owner's perspective as well as an organizational perspective. What's the owner's box? So it's really making sure that we're creating that consistency, cadence, and clarity to ensure that the owners know and understand what's expected of them, but also then what's expected of the leadership team within the organization. So making sure that there's rules and oversight, really being clear around stakeholder interest, and then really beginning to understand what's the direction and control of all parties involved. So shareholders, they're the owners of the company and provide the financial backing. Often their responsibility is to make sure from an independent perspective is that they're voting in the best of the company. Making sure, again, I mentioned this before, this concept of NEFO, nose in, fingers out. They're put in place to make sure that they put the board in and that the board are hiring the CEO and the rigor around that. So I don't necessarily need to go into all of this too much because those of you on the call know and understand. Often family businesses, and I'm seeing a big trend in family offices that are starting to happen now. And if you've not come across the 3 circle model with regards to family businesses, this tool can often manage the complex interplay between the differing hats that people kind of wear. And often people talk about, the 3 hats of, shareholder, director, and owner. When there's family dynamics that are incorporated into that, there's often some further potential complexity. And again, creating that clarity is something that needs to come around quite frequently. So, governance board director. So governance, the system of rules, practices, and process a company uses to direct and control operations. They're accountable for the strategic direction. So they help to decide or inform how the organization grows. Directors with broad strategic experience help address opportunities and threats. Accountability from a legal and oversight perspective. So One of the things that I've been working a lot with boards recently is to actually create out the accountability chart for the governance board to really be clear in helping them understand. Because if you've got new directors that are coming on or directors with specific skills, understanding how they work and operate on an individual and a collective basis is really important so that we don't have the blurred lines, that we create the clarity that is needed throughout the whole organization. So again, dependent upon the makeup of the business, how it works and operates. Sometimes there's differing options. You might have a compliance board. There may well be an insider board. May well be inner circle, quasi-independent. Advisory boards are becoming very prevalent. And there's no one answer for anything, but what's important is to create the clarity in helping the day-to-day running of the organization and the governance board creating that clarity to move forward. Some stats that I came across from BDC is that those that are working with an advisory board often have got 24% plus higher annual sales and 18% higher productivity. So again, making sure that we are clear in understanding, and this kind of just at the bottom, understanding, what's the formality or informality? Is it a peer board? Is it a pop-up advisory board? Is it best practice? Are things done on demand, or is it done on project basis? Creating again that clarity and helping people know where they sit, why they sit there, and how they're working and operating. 7 advantages of an advisory board: strategic decisions made objectively, experience and peer support for major decisions, advice and encouragement, accountability, save time, grow through the networks and credibility. So how to set up your governance accountability structure. So the first thing is around having some discovery. So as an organization, working out what type of governance board structure do you need? Step two, what's the company growth cycle? So where are you at within the cycle? Are you emerging? Are you growing? Is there a plan to exit? And how are you changing? Step three, 10-year target and competency gap. This is really important and something that I don't see enough boards doing is once they first and foremost define the 10-year target and then identify the competency gap between today and where the organization is going to be in 10 years' time. And then it's a case of prioritizing the expertise that are needed to engage the right advisors. Again, whether that's an advisory board or a governance perspective, there's a tool that's in the process of being launched here in New Zealand called Govern 365, which really helps for a board to assess and analyze where their skill gaps are, and then look to find out from an individual perspective as to where and what gaps individuals or collectively the board have got. And if anybody wants to know any more about that, please reach out to me. Gone through that. So again, from a business cycle perspective, whereabouts are we with regards to the aligned activity and also from a strategic perspective? Knowing and understanding where you are in that cycle is really going to determine where, what, and who you're going to need to fill out. So this is a tool which we use within EOS, which is called Getting What You Want. So based on Stephen Covey's start with the end in mind. So if we take the orange boxes, what our 10-year target is, and then we work backwards, what's the skill gaps that we potentially need? Okay, what's the prioritization? What's the skills that we need? Where are we going to find it? So we use this aspect to really begin to understand. And again, one of the things I've observed again over the years is that the skills that are needed now are not necessarily the skills that we needed previously. So refreshing the board competency and skill level is often needed to make sure we're moving in the right direction. Okay, second phase is established. So what we need to do is step four, accountability chart and governance charter. Write a charter explaining the governance structure and the roles and responsibilities of shareholders, the governance board, and the advisory board, if in place. So use the an accountability kind of chart like this. So being really clear, what are the roles that we're looking to fill, and what are the what's the functions, and then what's the roles underneath. So really being quite specific around the expectations around accountability. Step five, finding and selecting directors or advisors. So board directors are voted in by shareholders. In some companies, often they represent themselves. Really important to source the against the competency gap that you've got via professional networks. So YPO, EO, Vistage, Headhunters, like how, where, and who do you need to get has got to be based on what you need, not because necessarily that they're a good governor. Step six, advisor and board director contracts. So D&O insurance, clear agreement covering objectives, charter expectations, term, and compensation. Again, the amount of times that I see people sitting on governance boards that are not A, fit for purpose, or B, delivering what it is that they need to be delivering. Um, So you can see on this slide here is that we've got the accountability chart for the organization. Potentially, then we've got the advisory board, and then depending on where, who, and what you've got, will then depend on where people sit within that. Execute. So, step seven, kickoff your orientation. So, this is just the process that I often go through. So, 60-minute board call, introductions around the table. Really important to review the charter, confirm contracts were received and signed, provide access to the data room, confirm the next board meetings and the frequency. Step eight, board meeting. So 2 to 3 weeks after. So this is going back to what I was talking about with regards to the operational piece. So when the company has their EOS quarterly, the board meeting will normally sit 2 to 3 weeks after that. This allows for the board to have hindsight, insight, oversight, and foresight. So what the board are looking to do is to make sure that the organization and the leadership team are tracking in the right direction to identify the two key rocks that need to be presented and send the board pack 7 days prior. So all of the normal things, including the EOS aspect. Step nine. So this is the board back feedback loop. So the chairman meets with the visionary and the integrator to share the feedback and the recommendations from the board. The visionary and the integrator update the leadership team and address any of the issues that have come out within that aspect that I spoke about with regards to the IDS. And then the team uses feedback to continue quarterly and annual EOS planning. So this is about making sure that we put the right structure in place from an operational perspective, but also then from a governance perspective. This is really making sure. I mean, you can see on here we're getting to the consistency and the cadence of the quarterly vision setting meetings. We're making sure that the visionary is able to articulate and talk the board through. This is what we've discussed as a leadership team. This is where we're at. This is what we're planning to do. The board meeting meets. And then the feedback loop then goes into the visionary and the integrator. The leadership team then moves into the process which I showed you before, which is the quarterly cycle, and then the annual session. And the main and most important thing here is that every stakeholder fully understands the vision and the plan. The VTO is shared by every single person within the organization, including the shareholders and the governance aspect. And this kind of like shows it in a different way. So you can see that the orange is the operational board, the leadership team, and the blue is the owner's box or the board. So it's just getting into that consistency, that cadence, and making sure that everybody is on the same page. Because if we've got everybody sitting in the right seats, we've got the right people, And what that will then mean is that we're all rowing in the same direction and we're able to achieve the things that we need to achieve. So that was in a whistle stop store tour, me just sharing EOS, also sharing then how it can work with regards to the owner's box. I am happy to take any questions, thoughts from anybody on the call.
I can see Andrew put some questions in the chat.
Okay, cool. Hello, Andrew. He's a fellow New Zealand VAB member. So, what is the investment required to get EOS implemented in an organization? So, great question. So, like I said before, there's 925 what we call EOS implementers across the globe. I personally focus on working with teams in Australia, New Zealand, and distributed global teams. We work on what we call a session rate. So when I'm working with a client, there's in theory there's 5 days per year, and we don't have any contracts, and we work on a session by session basis. My session fees are 10,000 Australian dollars per session. So in theory, the investment is 50,000 AUD per year. My sole responsibility when working with an organisation is to make myself redundant. So what I'm looking to do is to coach, teach, mentor a leadership team and thus the board as well to get to the stage where they don't need me anymore. I often say I'm a little bit like Nanny McPhee. So when I first start working with the team, there's a little bit of resistance and there's a little bit of tension. But by the end, people are like, "Oh, Adam, can you stay?" It's like, "No, you don't need me anymore. I'm done." The aspect with regards to working with a board is a little bit more, not necessarily complex, but it needs a little bit more attention because each business and organization is different. Um, I am probably in the mid fee space. There's people around the world who are higher. There's people that are lower. And if anybody on this call wants me to introduce, more than happy to kind of do so. Second question from Andrew is, can you pick and choose what elements you want implemented? Yes and no. So if you're working with an EOS implementer like me, we have to follow that proven process. If there's bits on here that you really love and you want to do, let me know the things that you want. I'm happy to share. So one of the things I love about EOS is all of the tools are freely available. So there's currently about 300,000 companies that are working with people like me. There's probably then 4 times that amount that are self-implementing. Um, Lynn asks, how effective can these one-day sessions be? What are the success factors? Um, so in my experience, I've done this with over 90 companies, Lynn. Uh, as any good facilitator, we get to the stage of working on the real issues fast and quick. The success factors are actually determined by the organization. It's like my role, and EOS is a framework, which means that everybody's running in the same way through the whole organization. The success factors are determined by the business and the leadership team. My role is to make sure how do we get to the stage of making sure that we're getting the right conversations with the right people at the right time. My fee and everybody else's EOS implementers fee is guaranteed. So if the client doesn't believe they've had value, then they wouldn't pay my fee. I've done it 90 with 90 teams. That's never happened to me once. Thank you, Lynn. Any other questions?
I'm not going to ask my question on here, but I have sent you a message on LinkedIn. And yeah, we could do a conversation if you can, but your fees are few for me, but very interesting. Definitely worth it for a larger organization, but for a small startup, perhaps not just immediately, but really, really
Well,
like the session, especially the first bit about how you kind of set up the business areas and the delivering planning what you're, planning how you want to do your business. So and the
yeah. So
different.
if anybody wants me to send them a digital copy of Traction, this is the first book.
Yeah.
There's 16 books now in the EOS library. Um, so
Yeah.
I'll just grab a couple. So if you kind of look at when I was showing you the six key components, so for example, there's a
Yeah.
book on people, there's one on process, there's one on issues. They're really quite easy to read.
Yeah.
I've got digital copies of all of them, so I'm happy to send through. Lola, I know that you've already connected with me on LinkedIn. Um,
Yeah.
I work on the basis that you probably saw some of the core values before, but one of the core values of EOS is help first. So,
Yeah.
like somebody like you, Lola, I am more than happy to send you, like, here's all the stuff, here's all the videos, go and like implement it for yourself. I know that when I was running a business, um, I I needed something like this to be able to
Yeah.
kind of run my businesses. I actually co-wrote um, this book here called the Check-in Strategy Journal. So
Yeah.
co-wrote that about 10 years ago, and we did a lot of work with Google across Europe, Barclays Bank, the YMCA, and when I then read Traction, it was like what Gino had written was 80% better than what
Oh,
we did.
that's good. I
Yeah,
think it sounds really good. My thinking and what really caught my eye when you first started speaking is I'm collaborating on so many different things at the moment, and it's just one me. I'm also building a different type of the business, and then I wanted to. When you were saying, I was like, yeah, how can I think to structure everything so I then don't burn myself out or don't lose and focus on the minutiae without seeing the big picture. So that's the kind of thing I wanted to kind of talk to you about to say, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. How do I structure? How do I reset everything in my brain? Because my brain is just boiling at the moment with excitement, but still, there's only 24
yeah,
hours in the day.
and there's a really interesting point there, which is, and I'm often sharing with teams is less is more.
Mhm.
So why do we choose to do like I was speaking with a team last week, and it's like so we've got 32 priorities. It's like if everything's important, then nothing's important. So we need to slow down to speed up. So how do we make sure that we focus on the right things? And sometimes that's really difficult to be able to, to put to pause things or stop things. But having that conversation as a leadership team and in line with the board of kind of going, right, okay, where and what do we need to prioritize? Because if we're not having those conversations and we're not making those decisions, then we're just doing too much.
Yeah, but my leadership team is leadership team of one at the moment. And people, then I'm having strategic partners, and it's to know which one. Anyway, maybe if you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes, we can have a quick, pull something together and we can
Absolutely.
run
Love to.
through it. Thank you so much, Adam. This has been amazing. Thank you.
Anything else?
Anyone else have any questions for Adam? No, everyone's quiet this morning. We
Cheers,
got
Andrew.
Perfect. So then, if we have no more questions, thank you so much to Adam for the wonderful session. We really hope you have enjoyed it. I posted in the chat Adam's LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with him, continue the conversations. And yeah, thank you so much for coming. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. If it's your morning, if it's your afternoon, have a good evening. And thank you so much for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bye.